you're going to be able to do some incredible, cool stuff. And at the end of the day, have some incredible experiences with the Lord that are amazing.
Hi, and welcome to the Storia podcast where storytellers disrupt. I'm David Noronha.
And I am Fabiano Altamora.
Before we hop in with part 2 of our very special episode with actress Emily Rose, please remember to like, subscribe, follow, and give us that 5-star review. So, brother, remind us, who is this amazing actress Emily Rose?
We have the amazing Emily Rose here. This is part 2. So Emily, just as a recap, Emily was Audrey Parker in Sci-Fi Television's Haven. She was in that for 5 seasons. She's also Eleanor Fisher on Uncharted. She's been in ER, NCIS. Got a long list of credits, as long as both of my arms put together. So Emily, thank you for coming back.
Longer than that. That's an unimpressive stat.
Sorry.
I'd say we had longer pedigree.
It always comes to this, Emily, right? That David and I are always talking about our height. And I know my arm span might only be 5'8". Okay, let's use somebody else's arm span. Her credits are as long as David and my arm spans put together.
Emily, I'm going to have you back because Fab's actually training for a bodybuilding competition, and I'd actually like, we're going to invite you to judge that competition.
Okay,
I think it'll add a spice of humor.
I'm here. I will be here for any judging that needs to be done.
Thank you. We'll do that on one episode. Definitely not
Emily Rose on the judgment seat. Exactly. So listen, when we last left off, we were starting to scratch at the tough questions. And, you know, Fab and I want to, if you're willing, we want to, it's hard sometimes when you're a pro and you come from the industry. So go as far as you want to go, but there's a lot of artists out there that are struggling with very similar things. Fab, you had a question for her that kind of went around her being a married woman and tougher topics.
So Emily, we get this asked by our students all the time, and, you know, pastors ask us how we navigate certain things. Like when you were on Haven, it was in Nova Scotia, right? That you were filming. You were there for 5 seasons. You were married throughout that as well, weren't you?
I literally just got married. We got married in December of 2009. I booked Haven in March of 2010.
So how did you navigate being apart from Derek for extended periods of time? How did you keep yourself accountable? How did it even cause you any problems? Did it not? Like, how did you navigate that season?
Yeah, well, the first thing I'll say is Derek and I, when we did begin dating, I was working pretty regularly. So it was one of those things that was always part of the conversation. Like, this is what I do for my work. This is what I feel called to. And I just want you to know that going in. Do you have any problems with that? What do you think about that? You know, like, this is kind of part of the package, in my opinion. It wasn't that I wasn't willing to chat more about it, but it was really important to me that whoever I was going to be married to was going to understand that piece. And in some ways, I kind of laugh with him sometimes because you know, he's a therapist and he has to sit and listen to some of the most like intimate details. And these things are real for people. Like, the things that he has to hear are sometimes incredibly dark, and maybe not anything maybe your normal wife would necessarily want their husband sitting in and listening to.
Yeah.
So I think that in the church, when I'm trying to kind of bridge the gap between the two, I try to highlight that there are different situations in many different occupations, you know, and no matter what occupation that we're going to do, there's not necessarily always clear, biblically lined out ethics for every single business situation that we're in. That being said, I was also pretty open with Derek that I said, listen, this is a part of my job. It's actually not a part of the job that I enjoy, you know? And that might actually be different for some people. Some people, that might be a hot fire that they cannot touch, like that they just cannot even go there. I think for guys and for girls, it kind of varies in different aspects. Like for girls, you got to really guard your mind with like the storylines and things. It's more of like an imaginative sort of situation that you would need to guard yourself with. With guys, sometimes it's more of the physical situation you would need to guard yourself with. So I think these are all kind of conversations that we had, the kind of counseling that Derek was wanting to do at the time. I mean, I had to really be brave and be on board with some of the stuff that he was interested in getting licensed in and all of that. There was a lot of those conversations we were having. I think when I talk to other students like at Bethel and whatnot, I always say it's really important that even if you can, even before you're married or anything, or get a job or money is involved in any way, shape, or form, try to write down with yourself a list of like your non-negotiables. Like, I will not do this. I will not do this. My conscience feels violated in any of these ways. Like, this is where my conscience says, no, I don't feel good about what I'm doing. And I therefore should not be doing it. And those are your lines that you do not cross. Now, have I had situations, it wasn't on Haven, it was on other things where I've been in a situation where I'm like, wow, this crew or this director or this situation has pushed me further than I would have felt comfortable. I just reached out to my mom as soon as possible and I said, Mom, this became bigger than I thought it was going to be. And she said, okay, we're just going to pray right now. We're going to pray that ends up on the cutting room floor. You're okay. You're fine. I'm like, yeah, I think I'm just weirded out that I didn't know that this was going to be the situation. Because with television, I try to explain too, you don't always know.
Yeah.
You're
no,
auditioning.
you sign for a 6-7 year contract and you have no idea where your character is going to go.
So it's one big trust fall. And so I think more recently I've gotten a lot braver about just saying, yeah, no, I won't do that.
Well, let me ask you this, because it's actually felt like since the Me Too movement, which I've kind of redubbed just like the justice movement, because I think there was a lot
Sure.
of fixing that had to go in there. All politics aside, there was just some really awful things happening in the industry that just wasn't being called out. And I mean, as a guy, I had to deal with it in different ways as well, which is a little bit of a well-kept secret as well. Was there anything that caught you off guard when you got to Haven? Any kind of situation that you're willing or able, or on any of your gigs, you can keep it generic, where you're like, here was a non-negotiable, and then I found myself in a really challenging situation that on second thought, I would have handled differently?
Well, I do think that your faith, I will say this about being on location. I would say the hardest thing for me when it came to being on location for an extended period of time was just like my personal walk with the Lord and getting that time in, like your routine of spending time. And why I mention that is because I'll say I was so tired, like getting up at like 4:30, 4:45 in the morning to get in the car, to travel down to set, to be in hair and makeup, to run lines with my scene partners, to do a full day, to go to the gym, to work out, to read the script, to be ready for the table read next week, to go. I mean, so tired, like napping during lunch, trying not to get wrinkles on your face to do the second part of the day. So tired. And on top of that, when you're leading a show, you have to be on for everybody. And if you're not on, like if you're not like, hey, how you do? It's like it goes on production reports. And then people are kind of like, how's your skin? How's your thing? How's your thing? Have you fitting? All this stuff that it just starts to like weigh on you. And so I just felt really like trying to make it to church on Sunday in a town I'd never been to, which really up in that part of Canada didn't even have like what I was used to when it came to church. Like there was nothing really around that much. Like to find that community, that was a fight for me to have to do that. And so I think for me, that was the biggest thing that became really hard, because when that tank starts to dwindle and you get tired emotionally and physically and spiritually, then you're just kind of like, wait, what's the point? What am I doing? Not even in terms of relationally, but also how you treat people.
Right.
Like
Yeah.
the things that normally you would be like, oh, I'm going to be above bar. I remember sometimes I'd be like, that person doesn't even have a personal relationship with the Lord, and they're kinder than I'm feeling right now. Like, what's the deal? Like the fruits of the spirit kind of a thing. So I think trying to guard that time is like, I've been like, Lord, if I ever lead another show or if I'm ever on something that taxing again, I will set aside that time. That will be something I just get in, because that was the piece that I felt I could feel it in my spirit. Like,
it's like a battery. It's like a tank. Yeah.
Did you and Derek have like, did you have like a said rule between you that you like, for example, when we spoke to David Oyelowo, him and Jessica would only have ever 2 weeks apart.
Mm-hmm.
Did you and Derek have that kind of,
we had heard of the 3-week rule. That was that's kind of something that floats out there. The 3-week rule. I was very fortunate because my scene partner's wife, Kirsty, was also like my trainer. Like, we all just were like really good family. It was great. They had a young daughter. We had just gotten married. Derek came up that first year because he was trying to get his prerequisites done with for counseling school at Fuller. And so he was doing everything online. So he was there the first year. But I was just actually rereading my journals just this last week of this time, because I was away shooting some little thing somewhere, and I try to get some perspective when I get some time by myself. But I was reading it, and it was so hard because he was a newlywed and I was working like 16 hours a day. So his expectations on what he was hoping for out of just being married were very different from what I was like, how can you expect anything more than what I am trying to give right now? Like, I am so maxed. So that was a big strain on our marriage. And then the second year he was at Fuller. And so we tried to do the long distance thing, and it was just so difficult because, I mean, if we weren't believers, hands down, we would have been like, this isn't working, like hands down, because there was so much we haven't seen each other, just enough time to fight, just enough time to like send you back home to LA, essentially, and that's just the reality of it. I mean, that is just the reality of it. So, we kind of see it now in his counseling ministry is like, he has a heart for couples that are in the arts. He can understand that. But it was very difficult. And I still think to this day, he would say that, like, if a serious job sort of kind of comes across and it's on the table, we feel ourselves sort of PTSD a little bit, like, you feel yourself going like, is this going to cause a thing, So it's
so funny because I think we write off a lot of this stuff to like, well, maybe if you work a little harder, or if you're a little bit healthier, or, if, I don't know, whatever, you have counseling or so. There's this basic human thing where you've got to be with the person that you love. It's just that plain and simple.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And I remember when Lisa and I first started dating, my wife and I were going on 30 years together, 26 years married this summer. Mm-hmm. But our first 2 years, she was out on tour with West Side, mm-hmm. and I was at the Guthrie or something. I think in the first 2 years, we were apart from each other 1 year cumulatively out of the 2. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We were not believers. Mm-hmm. It is but by the grace of God, because God was stubborn, that he's like, no, I'm going to get you 2 idiots through this, because it certainly was not on my capacity to be a healthy man at that time. It is brutal. Mm-hmm. It is brutal. Mm-hmm. Even today, when I was in Budapest, I was away for like 20 days. It was soul crushing. Mm-hmm. And nowadays, I don't even know who the hell I am away from my family. I get away from I literally don't know what to do with myself. I sit in the hotel room. I have no idea who I am.
And the thing is, as you get older as well, you realize the glamour of what it feels like to be on set or be away for extended periods of time. If from the outside, it sounds amazing, but the reality of it's weird. This tension.
It's actually really weird.
I'm praying for the job that I want. I get the job that I want, then I'm away from my loved ones.
I can't wait to
get back. And the older you get, really all you want to do is be at home with your family and your kids. So it's always this tension. What a weird thing. So I remember similar when I first got married, I was on tour Then I literally had 2 weeks off, booked another job.
What were you doing? You were doing
I was doing The Boyfriend.
The Boy.
West End tour. Then I did South Pacific, and then I went straight into.
Were you
Romeo
one
and
of the
Juliet.
Polynesian women? And
Yeah, I was. What was her name? Bally High. I can't remember. And anyway, I remember in my first year of marriage, I remember having this conversation. I don't even know if you know this, Mum. I can't cuss on this show, can I?
I don't know, but we should remind people because this was part 2 that your mother is actually
my
just
mother's
off
in the room. So anyway, I'm not. I'll
Otherwise, people are going to think you're calling me Mum.
I'll say what my dad said to me. I said, Dad, I don't know if I can do this first year of marriage.
Yeah.
And he said, you made a commitment. Get back in the F-bomb house. And literally that changed everything for me because I realized, you can have this taxing, you can be working, loving it, but then you're not with you. And I think the thing at the end of the day is like, it comes back to what is the Lord saying? Your career is important, but your family is what you will be held accountable to. And when you get to the throne room of God, he's not going to say to you, oh, wow, great career.
Yeah. 10
really
seasons.
bad family, great job. He'll be like, how did you treat your wife and your kids and those around you? You know what I mean?
Okay. So you've talked about how you navigated the early days with your husband, and now you're a mom of 3. So things definitely got easier for you. So how do you on earth, because listen, I'm a dad. I do as much as I possibly can. I try to be an involved father. I would be a complete bold-faced liar if I didn't say that it's not my wife. So she has this freaking superpower to hold down the fort. When I fall apart when she goes away to like the grocery store.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so is that true of you? Number one. Number two, how do you do it? How are you the mom of 3 kids and they're young? How do you do it?
Well, yeah. Well, one thing I don't know if this is wise or not, but I felt very fortunate because part of the miracle of Derek and I's marriage and situation on Haven is that I accidentally got pregnant. Probably I think it was the 3rd season. It was like the end of the 2nd season. I was able to be completely, like, totally pregnant off season. And then they pushed production. It was the Lord. They pushed production probably 4 weeks. I came back and shot 4 episodes in 4 days. That's beauty of sci-fi. They like put me in those 4 days. But Miles was 6 weeks old when I went back to work. So he was a widow. And it was like, and when I say it takes a village and a husband who was very on board and understanding, we would all leave in the car. Tommy would come pick us up. We'd leave in the car. We'd have the little car seat. We'd go to the trailer. Derek would lay down and take care of Miles. And then he'd come to hair and makeup, bring him to me. I would nurse him during hair and makeup. I'd give him back to Derek. Derek would go back and sleep with him. And then they would go off. I would pump back in the trailer, give him, like, those are the technicalities. And I only say that because there's so many girls that maybe don't think that they can or that they can ask. But my producers were awesome. Derek was awesome. And I mean, I even like, I don't know. I just say this, like, I even like nursed my own child through all that. Like that was like to the point of it can be done. Like it is possible. And that was like so sweet of the Lord because I realized, oh, like this can be done. Is he a little clingy now? Yes. My oldest is a little clingy, but, but it was great, and having a baby there on set and doing those years with, I just realized, oh, this is how you do it. So then every other job past that, whenever a producer would freak out about like, oh, but you have a child, I'm like, don't worry, this is how we're going to do it. Like on turnaround, you're going to tell me, I'm going to go back. It's not going to be a deal. My mom will be there. We'll go, it's just like, it taught me how to do those things. I will say that, as they get older and wanting them to have a stable, like, childhood, it changes what I can and can't do. I've been offered stuff, in Canada. It was during the pandemic, but if I couldn't get my daughter there or my mom there, then I couldn't do it. There's things you have to turn down or whatnot, depending on age, or maybe stuff that I don't really even want them to see. And in terms of my auditioning, it's good because I can't make it so precious. I just have to do it and get it done in the time that I can get it done. But it is, the challenge of it is I feel like I struggle with like my own stress level or my own desire to want to be doing it at the level I was doing it, and then having to just be content and thankful and know that I always told the Lord I would love to be an actress and a mom. So I just have to be like, this is that part. This is that part. This is that part, you know? And I'm thankful that they get to see me do what I do, even though they kind of don't really understand it. Like my oldest is just starting to understand that mom was in a pretty cool video game. That's pretty cool. So,
Yeah, I have to
you
say,
know,
I mean, for having a couple boys, being you're pretty badass. Video games,
yeah,
pretty badass
exactly.
mom.
Yeah.
Yes,
My
yes, exactly.
on a lighter
Yeah.
note, my son Isaiah is he's learning Spanish. He's taking a college class. He decided of all people to do a presentation on me. It was like,
Oh, nice.
yeah, he did a presentation on me.
Aw.
No, but listen, no,
Amazing.
he's a really clever kid. So his teacher is fascinated with Cuba. So he trots me out. I'm convinced now he trots me out as a show pony and dangles out there that I'm an actor and distracted everybody off of his Spanish because everybody's like, "Oh, I think I saw your dad." And so I was like, "Bro, that was well
awesome.
done. That was pretty good
That is
distraction."
awesome. That's awesome.
That's awesome. So Emily,
Yes.
what's next then? Like, what do you
Well-
have in the pipeline right now? What's happening?
Well, I would say, you know, kind of calling back to that other question about what do you do in the in between and sort of becoming a maker. I never felt like a writer. I feel like I can't write. I feel like I can collaborate, but the pen to page, that's intimidating to me. But I always wanted to direct, and I never thought I could produce either. But when I started to create things, I was like, wait, I know that person. And what if we do this? And what if we take this to that person? So in this sort of like new season of my career where I realize that parts are going to be different and situations are going to be different and all the things, that I really just want to make good stuff. I want to make stuff. And so I'm still auditioning. Like I still had an audition I had to turn in today. I have another one I need to turn in on Wednesday. I have some voice stuff, which is so hard to do. But I have those things that I'm always trying to do. But I find that most of my days are taken up right now with producing. And what I mean by that, have I done it yet? Technically, not technically. I haven't stood on set of something that I produced, but I have about 6 projects that we are like fostering along like little kids, and they're all at different stages. And that's how I'm keeping my head in a place of creativity and knowing what's out there and meeting people, casting directors, producers, and being able to talk about these things and getting really good feedback that I've been doing it long enough that I do have something to offer in this world. So I don't know. I think I'm just constantly saying, okay, Lord, what is mine to do today? And what would you have me do? And prayerfully sitting before him going, it is the 11th hour, Lord. So anytime now that you want to send me somebody to fund this project or to fund us or to do this or to do that, I'm ready for it. You know, let's go. So
Emily, before we wrap, there's a question that Fab and I like to ask. If you were to speak to your 7, 8-year-old self, what would you tell her? What advice would you give?
Well, I have this sign on our wall in our house that a friend got me, and I love it. And it says, "Not to spoil the ending, but everything's going to be okay." And I feel like it's not that I was ever worried as a 7 or 8-year-old that it would be okay. I think at that time I wanted to be an artist, an astronaut, a singer, and a horse vet or something like that. And all on the same thing. And I look at that now and I'm like, oh, that's an actor. Like I wanted to be all the things, you know? And I think just being able to tell myself that like you're going to be able to do some incredible, cool stuff. And at the end of the day, have some incredible experiences with the Lord that are amazing, and enjoy it. Enjoy it. And maybe I just need to tell myself that right now. Enjoy it. Enjoy it, you know? Enjoy it.
That's good. I think we need to tell ourselves that sometimes.
Yeah,
as
probably.
well, don't we?
We'll declare that over
Yes,
ourselves
yeah.
later, over and over.
Well, Emily, listen, it's
You kn-
been amazing to have you. Sorry, did you want to say something else? You're going to drop
No,
another
I was just going to
mic
say
drop?
the other little thing in that little season that I think maybe is just for right now is I am just being impressed upon so greatly in the last week about just the importance of keeping the Sabbath and keeping a Sabbath. And I think in this type of industry and profession that I always have to be doing something or putting a tape in or doing something when the kids are down or whatever. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll get a Sabbath. Like that'll be my Sunday. I'll go to church or whatever. And that's a Sabbath. But as I've been spending time in scripture recently, it has been repeatedly over and over and above all, keep the Sabbath, keep the Sabbath, keep the Sabbath. And it is, I had a tape due today. And I was not able to do it on Friday because I was traveling. And Saturday, I had a ton of stuff with kids. So naturally, I should have done it on Sunday so that I could have it in first thing Monday. But I told myself, I was like, I'm not going to do it. I'm not going to do it, which is totally not what you should do as an actor. You should not do that. But I just said, I'm going to take my Sabbath. I'm going to do that. And in the morning, I'm going to just get to work. And I'm just going to make sure that rhythm is new in my life and is held up. And so in this time of hustle and trying to get it all done, I'm trying to hang on to that really he wants us to rest. He wants us to trust that he's a provider. He wants to take care of us. And if we are obedient and we rest, that there's something to that. So,
Emily, thank you so much. We bless
thank
your
you guys.
family and your career
Thank
and
you.
your marriage.
I
And it's
receive
been
it.
such an honor that you have joined us on Story Podcast. You've been listening to Story with Emily Rose. Don't forget to like, subscribe, download, and leave a comment. We'll see you next time.